There are a lot of calendar apps and it's very confusing. At the end of the day, we want our apps to work for us and not the other way around where we have to do a lot of work to adapt to the apps. Hi, my name is Yuka and I create videos about tech and creativity here. I think the best system is what works for you, whether it's using a physical calendar or apps or a little bit of both like me. Today, I want to walk you through my calendar and task productivity setup and talk about some of the other apps that I've been playing with. And that may inspire you or help you with your setup as well. I don't think my setup is perfect in any way. It's just what works for me now. And to be honest, it's always evolving and I actually like the process of trying things out, learning things, and changing things around. First of all, I want to talk about Notion Calendar. Some of you may know that it was released a few weeks ago by Notion, obviously. It's actually a rebrand and an update from an app called Cron, which Notion acquired in 2022. I had been a user of Cron since then, so it's not a new app for me. It's just like a different icon and they added a bunch of new features. Cron/Notion Calendar is very clean. It has a Mac and iOS app and it just works, no BS. It has mostly the same features as Google Calendar, except for two things that really stood out to me. First is the ability to add more than 2 time zones. And second is the ability to schedule meetings, kind of like Calendly, but it's free. And the time zones are also interchangeable, so I can schedule something in my time zone, and then when I send it to someone else, I can convert it into that person's time zones. These two features alone are a game changer and like really useful for me because I work with a lot of people in Japan and sometimes in other time zones within the US. With the new Notion Calendar update, they added a couple of new features that are really interesting. First is the ability to add your database information into your calendar. Second is the ability to drag and drop all day items into your day, which sounds really niche, but it's actually really useful. Thirdly is that in Notion itself, if you have a calendar database, you could only show one database at a time. If you have multiple databases that has date properties, you are not able to show them in the same calendar, which Notion Calendar allows you to do. So far for me, the only database that I'm showing in my Notion calendar is my projects database, which contains my content calendar basically. So it has information about my videos and when it's uploading. I also tried hooking up my tasks database to my calendar and it just kind of got a little messy. It is somewhat useful to be able to drag and drop into the day so I can kind of time block and also have the tasks that I want to do in that time block. But since Notion Calendar and Notion integration is very new, I think it's missing a couple of key features that would potentially make this really, really useful. One thing is that you can add databases from within Notion Calendar, and you can also do that from Notion itself. So if you have a Notion database in Notion, you will see Show in Notion Calendar button that you can press. And if you press that button, it will carry over the filters that you have set up in the database or the view into Notion Calendar. But that filter isn't shown anywhere in Notion Calendar, or you cannot change it in Notion Calendar. So it could be really confusing as to why you are seeing certain items or why you're not seeing certain items, because it could be filtered that you are not aware of. You also cannot really make changes from the calendar except for the time. You can move around the time and you can change the title, but no other properties are showing and you cannot change those properties. So for example, if I have my task database showing, I will not be able to check things off as I go because that checkbox doesn't show up on the calendar side. So I would have to go back and forth anyways. Since I was using Cron, I was happy with the calendar side of things on Cron. So I'm not mad about it. But I think for Notion Calendar to become really useful and actually fully integrated with Notion, I feel like it's missing a couple of features. So I'm looking forward to more updates on Notion Calendar. So as you may be able to see, I have been time blocking my calendar and it's currently set up like this. I am a full-time content creator, so I work for myself. So this time blocking calendar works really well for me. So I have 4 2-hour session slots every day. And my intention is to use 3 of them for work-related stuff and 1 of them for more personal development kind of things. For example, I am currently learning Korean and 3D modeling, so I want to use that 1 slot for those kind of learning things. To be honest, this is kind of like my ideal scenario, and it doesn't work like this every day. Sometimes I get tired, sometimes I just don't feel like it, and that's totally okay. But I really like having the structure because it really helps me understand what my ideal day is, and if I deviate from that, how far did I deviate? For each of these 2-hour sessions, I use something called Pomodoro technique. You might have heard of it, but if you haven't, it's like a focusing technique where you focus for 25 minutes, rest for 5, and then you repeat that again 4 times. So in total, it takes 2 hours to complete. To track these Pomodoro sessions, I'm using an app called Session. It has a built-in timer and it also can show your calendar side by side. So I can keep a log of the sessions I actually did, and it helps me understand how my day went. I used to use the free version for a very long time, but recently I got a subscription to Setapp, and Sessions was one of the apps that was included in the subscription, so I started using the paid version here. Side note, if you are a user of Setapp, let me know your favorite apps there. I just started like a month ago, so I'm just like kind of trying things out right now. So in the future, I want to do like a Setapp video separately. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, let me know in the comments. So for task tracking, I have been using a mix of different things, but the main tools I use is Notion and a papered planner, believe it or not. In Notion, as I was talking about before, I have a tasks database that is connected to my projects database. This has been my process for the past few years and it has been working really well for me, but this only tracks the tasks that are related to work and my video projects. So it's missing a lot of the tasks that realistically I need to do in a day. For example, personal tasks like making a doctor's appointment, taking out the trash, whatever, those type of things are not in my Notion. For those kind of things, I like to just write it out in paper. I have a Muji planner that I got in Japan. Unfortunately, I think this horizontal planner is not available in the US as far as I saw on their website. But I really like this form factor because you can have it on your desks sideways and it kind of like fits with your keyboard. So on my Muji paper planner, the weekly view has a line in the middle that divides it to the top and bottom part. So I like to write the work related stuff on the top part and my personal stuff on the bottom part. It also has a little blank space on the right hand side. So I like to write my weekly review on Sunday nights, kind of like going over the whole week and make little notes, make little journals about how my week went and set my intentions for the next week. It's only been a few weeks since I started doing this, to be honest, because I just started this planner in 2024, but I think it'll be a super nice record of how my days and weeks went as I progressed in the year, and I can kind of flip through and go over things when I want to. I also started using my paper planner for habit tracking as well. If I wanted to, I can make the most elaborate Notion habit tracker templates, but I know that physically checking things off, circling things in has some kind of like serotonin boost in your brain, and it definitely works. So I just wanted like that physical gratification you only can get with a pen and paper. I just started tracking the days I went to the gym or did a home workout. So far, it's been really satisfying to see how my month is going. Another calendar app that has been piquing my interest is Amie. It's a new app that just came out of beta. It has a iOS and Mac app so far, and you can only sync your Google Calendar. It also has some really interesting integrations with a bunch of different apps. A few that were interesting was Spotify and Apple Health. With the Spotify integration, it keeps a log of the music played on your calendar, And with the health app integration, it shows you when and what workout you've done. I really like these kind of like life logging, so it's really interesting that it's built into your calendar. It reminds me of the Apple Journal app that came out with iOS 17.2, which does similar logging but in like the journal context. I also use the Apple default calendar to an extent because in some cases it's the best or the only option that is available in some Apple ecosystem use case. However, I connect it to my Google account, as I mentioned before, because I want it to be the only source of truth and I don't want multiple versions of calendar. So I have my Apple Calendar syncing to my Google account. None of the calendar apps that I just talked about has a decent Apple Watch integration, including Google Calendar. So that is one of the reasons that I'm actually forced to sometimes use Apple Calendar. Another example is the standby feature on iPhones that can only show Apple Calendar as well. Adding on the Apple Calendar component doesn't really add any work for me because it's just syncing from my Google Calendar, and my main calendar app is Notion Calendar, but everything is synced through Google. Having one source of truth and having that be Google is probably the most fail-proof way because a lot of new apps will have Google integration first and not Apple when they launch, like Amie. That was my current 2024 task calendar habit tracking setup. I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, let me know. On this channel, I share a lot about tech, creativity, and sometimes productivity as well. So if you are not already subscribed, please do, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!